So I want to make an extra note here. This is mainly regarding Unity. So this, whether you are trying to put an FBX file into Unity and having a custom solution, or you're trying to take that FBX file and convert it to VRM, whether you have edited normals or your default normals, it is highly a must that you go into the FBX settings of the FBX model and you make sure that legacy blend shape normals are enabled. Whether, like I said, whether VRM conversion or you have your FBX custom solution, you must have legacy blend shape normals enabled. The reason why is because there's this weird issue regarding blotchy shadows, and none of us wants to basically have blotchy shadows. So in order for me to describe this issue, basically, whenever you talk, if you don't enable legacy normals, every time you talk, there's going to be some blotchy shadows that appear out of nowhere. If you enable legacy normals, you will not have those issues. So you can see how I'm talking, you don't see blotchy shadows or weird stuff happening in my face. That's because I have legacy normals enabled. So I highly recommend, whether you're a realistic model, a tuned model, edited normals, non-edited normals, you're doing it for VRM purposes or FBX, any usage of Unity, enable legacy blend shape normals. And I will make sure there'll be a screenshot on how these, where to find the settings and where to enable it. Make sure you have that enabled. But that's all I really have to say. I continue the video.
Hi everybody! I hope you're all having a good day. I hope you're all smiling and enjoying your lovely day. So I'm going to be making a tutorial about how to do normal editing. Many people have been asking me how to basically make, your shadows look more toon style, especially for VRM use, because I know for a fact that there are many people who are doing research regarding anime shadows, but most of them are more focused on Blender specific shadows rather than Unity or basically VRM usage, because you can't use nodes from Blender to Unity. You also can't use vertex paint data to Unity either. You can't. That's just, it doesn't work that way. It can't translate properly, and neither would VRM like that either way, because VRM has its limits. So I'll be trying to go over how to do the normals, what are some things to be aware about, and all that information. So things to be aware about in terms of normals is that MToon doesn't do a good job at these edited normals. So if I were to take a sphere and I copy the normals from the sphere to your head, MToon would look pretty bad with it, and that's because MToon doesn't really do a good job with the what we call an offset normal shadow thing. It doesn't do a good job. It'll look weird. You'll have this like really awkward outline on your head. It's not like a black outline, it's more of like a shadow outline issue, which is fine. That's what normals are supposed to do when you edit them. There's going to have some sort of offset. But the way that MToon does it, it doesn't really do a good job at hiding it. Koyomi, on the other hand, does a very good job, but MToon does not. So we have to make sure we edit our normals so MToon can still like, how the normals are without making it look weird. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be showing you guys my personal method on how to do this. I'm going to be showing it at a more complicated level. This can still apply to void models. I will say though, fun fact, if you have a void stable model, you technically already have edited normals. They're just not super strong per se, but they still exist. So if you'd like to still remake them, that's perfectly fine. But just a little fact there, void stable models actually do have edited normals. I've checked, they do. At least when you export them freshly, if you reset their vectors, which reset vectors is resetting normal positions and all that. If you reset the vectors, then you lose all that data, so yeah. Another thing to also be aware about, so first of all, I'll show you how your end result will look like. Your face should look something like this if you have edited normals. At least the ones that I'm using the smooth type of these normals, mainly because there's another type, what we call like the Guilty Gear normals type, which looks nice, but I don't recommend it for VTubing purposes because of how snappy it looks. While it's more accurate, it's more snappy, and I would prefer that to stay with like Blender usage rather than VTubing. So we'll be using this technique. But thing to be also aware about is whenever if you plan on using edited normals with realism, you're gonna have a bad time, because if I go down to my blend shapes, let me show you. If I go down to my blend shapes, you will have something that looks like this. The weird looking wrinkle stuff. That's actually normal. And the only way to fix that is to keep your shading unlit. So let me hide this real fast. But basically, if you keep your shading unlit, you can see that it's basically gone. So that's why we can't use realism for this. So if you are going into realism, do not edit the normals. It's best to just keep them at default. You can try to slightly edit them, I guess, but I would prefer your default normals if by any chance you do plan on realism. But this is best if you're going for more pure toon style, basically. So yeah. But without further ado, let me show you the techniques on how I do my normal editing. So I'll start off simple. We'll start off with how I personally do the hair normals, and then I'm gonna show you guys how I do my head normals and then body. And just to let you know, what I do for the body will also apply for the clothes. So let's get started. And yes, you're gonna see my base model. This is for the tutorial. So I'll start off with tying the body first, and then we're gonna focus on the hair. That's the first thing we'll do. So let me go ahead and reset vectors, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be needing to reset vectors possibly a lot depending on how much you edit. So this is how you'll reset your vectors basically. So just remember that basically. So mesh, normals, reset vectors. If by any chance it's not visible in the video, I should be able to have some sort of screenshot to show. But I'm pretty sure it should be shown with the buttons here. So yeah, so pretty much these are basically my default normals, but we want to make sure that they're smooth. So how can we do the hair normals? Now there are multiple techniques for the hair. What we do is we create something called a proxy mesh. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to use Shift A, I'm going to press mesh, I'm going to click on UV sphere, and then I'm going to go edit mode, and I'm going to move the sphere upward. Now what most people will do, typically I would use a sphere for the hair, but most people would use a cube actually. And what they'll do is that they'll take the cube and basically they'll model it based off of the shape of their hair. So just to give you a rough example of what I mean, it'll look like basically something like this. They'll do like, you know, taking some time to make like a proxy mesh sort to like be able to get the hair shading to look nice. And this is good. There are, depending on how you make it, there are some potential issues with this, which I'm not much of a fan of. So for this type of technique, some people would use the subdivision and smooth it out. This is still good if you want to make sure that the shadows are more consistent throughout the hair, but I don't really like it because from my experience I don't really have a good job at this, so I prefer doing the sphere technique instead. But if you feel that you should do the other technique that I just showed, feel free. It might actually suit you better. But for me, I put the sphere near the center of the hair. I do not put the hair like this, like where it's dead center of the head. I put it in the center of the hair mesh. No matter how long it is, put it in the center of your hair mesh. That way, as best as possible, the shadows won't overcrowd your mesh. Because if you were to put it up here like this, you're gonna have more shadows in the back, which might look a little awkward. At least for this one, while the shadows can be a bit awkward, it'll still be more manageable, at least for VTubing purposes. So I do this, and then I make sure that I click on Object, Shade Smooth. So remember that, Object, Shade Smooth. And then what I do is I add a modifier, add subdivision surface, and my level, I will put at a level 5. But if by any chance you have a very laggy computer, what I typically do is I press the H key and hide it. So on your hierarchy, the hierarchy is on the top right of my screen here, what you see moving around crazy. the sphere right here is hidden, so that way I won't lag when I'm adding more polygons. So I'm going to press 5 for the levels viewport right here. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the hair, go to the data modifier, press the D button, or you can go to data transfer, but press the D button so that way you can get data transfer here. Click on source, find sphere, and then you're going to click on face corner data, custom normals, and then give it time, and you're done. You can mess around with the mapping if you prefer, but typically the default settings are fine. At least for my usage, it works perfectly fine. There you go. And just to show you how the shadows look like, it will look something like this. It may not look exactly like this for MToon. This is a realistic shader that I have. It will look different with MToon, but at least you can see that the shadows are much more smoother, and they act like a sphere, which that's what 2D, usually with 2D animation, they try to emulate a sphere look, which is stylistic, so it's really nice. Now that we got at least a start on the hair, now what we're going to do is the body. So, now like I said, this is going to be complicated level because I'm going to be assuming that you have a lot of parts on your face. You know, you got a lot of stuff going on in your face like this, and inside your head you also got a lot of expressions going on like this. Hold up. Yeah, you got a lot of expressions going on in your face and all this stuff, and you want to make sure that those are normal edited. I'll try my best to explain, although like I said, this is mainly up to you and how you want to experiment, but I will go ahead and try my very best to explain. So, once we have, I went ahead and reset my vectors. So what we're going to do is we are going to focus on making our face, just the face. We're going to make our face have those edited normals. So I will be having a different technique for this one. I'm going to be using, for the face, I'm using an add-on which link in description. It's called Mesh Fairing. So let me go ahead, select my head, and do Control L. If by chance you're a VRM file, most likely you might have to select multiple vertices to be able to select your mesh, because VRM tends to break the vertices by causing something what we call doubles. So if you select, like if you have a void model and you're trying to select the face and you do Control L but only like a parts of it are selected, make sure that you select multiple vertices like the eye sockets and the ears, so that way you can get your body basically. But mainly all you need is a face, but my face is connected to my body, so what I'll need to do is I need to go wireframe, C key for circle tool, and then I gotta deselect this. So real fast, just like that. So once I have that selected, I'm going to then separate it. So I'm going to press the P key and selection. And it's going to be I'm going to temporarily select this, and then I'm going to show you guys how to like join your body mesh to your head in a way that the normals won't look weird. So we're going to focus on this. So I'm going to go ahead and press the H key, and if by chance you hid stuff, you can always unhide by pressing Alt H, but I won't do that because there's so much meshes here. But anyways, though, we have our head mesh right here. So basically what we need to do is create a duplicate. So we'll do Shift D to create a duplicate mesh. So basically it looks something like this. We'll have two different head meshes. And what we need to do is we have to take this head mesh, the one on the right, we need to get this where the face looks more sphere-like. And just the face, not the back part. We don't touch the back part. Just the front of the face, we need to make it sphere-like. So that way, we can get the shadows on this model to look more sphere-like and more anime. And also, being able to work properly with MToon, especially because MToon does not do a good job with offsets. So yeah, so how we're going to do that, we're going to hide this mesh here, and I'm going to do Alt G to move this in the center. And what we'll do is, I'm going to go to edit mode, and like I said, make sure that you install the mesh fairing add-on. In case you don't know how to install, you would have to go into your edit, preferences, the add-ons, and basically you'll have to click on the install button and hopefully find your zip file, and that should be it. I should link a video in the description on how to install add-ons in case you are brand new to Blender and you have no idea how to do it. So check the description for any resources. So yeah. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to take the edge loop. So I'm going to do Shift Alt for my model. But if your model is roid, you can't do the edge selection like this because your model's in tries. So do keep that in mind. So, but basically what I'm doing for first step is I'm just selecting the eye socket, like around the eye socket basically. Actually, I do need to select the inner eye socket, so pardon me. But basically, you would need to select the eye socket first. I would select just one at a time. So just do one eye socket. So I'm doing the right one first. And then make sure that the other one is selected. So it looks something like this. And what you'll need to do is you need to go into Vertex, Fair Vertices, and then click OK, and then it's going to do this. It's going to look ridiculous, I know, but this is actually what's supposed to happen. Because as you can see, it's starting to smooth out the mesh. We aren't completely done. We'll have to go on the other eye, and then we gotta work on the mouse. And the mouse, it's kind of special, and I'll show you how to get the mouse working. It really depends on the topology and what the model type is, whether it's your own, or it's a void model, or some other model type. But I'll go ahead and do the eyes here just to repeat what I did. So select this eye socket, select your inner eye socket, and then make sure to select your outer eye socket as well. So just like this with a C key, take your time selecting it so that way you can make sure that everything is done properly. Make sure you don't have anything selected in the back, because then there's going to be some issues. Make sure it's just the front. And then once you have everything selected like this, you go to Mesh, or Vertex, my bad. You're gonna go to Vertex, the Vertex tab on the top, Fair Vertices, and click OK. And boom! As you can see, it's starting to get smoother. We're still not done yet, because now we gotta do the nose. So what I do for the nose is I usually, depending on your topology, I just select the nose and then I just slowly flatten it out one at a time. So just to show you like an example, I select my nose like this, and I do Vertex, Fair Vertices, and OK. As you can see, it's starting to get more flatter. We're almost done there. Because now we gotta do the mouse. The mouse is one of the trickiest parts, but I'll show you how to do that. So what you'll need to do is you need to delete the inner mouse socket. You can easily go to your materials and you can select your inner mouse material if you have one, but if by any chance your model has merged materials where every single detail is merged into one material, you'll have to manually select it. You can also use UV editing and be able to like click on the two double arrows at the top here and try to select your vertices from there if you like. And yes, the UV is also going to break a lot when you do this. That's why I said this is a proxy mesh, by the way, because you can see right here it looks weird. Like I said, that's just how it is. This is a proxy mesh, not your final model. Don't worry. But yeah. So I'll go ahead and delete the faces on this, the inner mouse. Actually, I'll delete the vertices so that way there's an opening. So once you delete your inner mouse, what we need to do is we need to manually merge them. Yes, you heard me. Manually merge them to the center. Of course, you can try some other tools, I guess, if you really want to make merging quicker, but my recommendation is merge the mouse manually. Like basically close your mouse up so that way there is no opening, so that way we can be able to merge it well with, you know, Fair Vertices add-on, the Fair Mesh add-on. So yeah, so I'll do this real quick, and hopefully all should be good, just like that. And yes, you're gonna see this weird shadow. If by any chance you see something like this happen, you'll need to select everything, go to mesh, or at least select the area if you want, but for this case we'll select everything. Go to mesh, normals, reset vectors, and it should be fixed. But we still have some stuff to smooth out because we're still not done. It's still not perfectly round. So what we'll need to do, we'll need to go to the right side of our screen by doing Control 3 if you have a numpad. If you don't have a numpad, just go to the View tab, go into Viewpoint, and then select left or right, which for our case we're doing the left side, so yeah. And what we'll be doing is with the C key, we're going to select that, and we're going to select the front part of the face, just like this. So it should look, basically do this right here, just like that. Go to Vertex, Fair Vertices, click OK, and give it some time. And there you go. You're done. That is how you make a proper proxy model that has the proper sphere. And I'm gonna go ahead and delete the material so it's not creepy. But I want to show you how the shadow will look like. So they'll look something like this. You see that? That looks smooth. This is what we want on our model. So now what we have to do, we need to transfer this to our, you know, our main head model. So right here, like I said, make sure you do a duplicate because this is our proxy model. And I'll show you side by side. It should look like this, just like that. So what we'll need to do, make sure that you label your mesh as proxy on the hierarchy area right here, so that way you don't get confused of which is which. Make sure that you hide the proxy model, and what you'll have to do, you'll go to the modifier and make sure your proxy is selected even when it's hidden. You're going to add subdivision surface, move that modifier up, and make the number 5 again. It's going to be, for my case, it's going to be very high poly, which can cause a lot of lag. As of right now, Blender just crashed a little bit, but it should be fine. But depending on your model, you might lag a bit, which is why I recommend hide the proxy model. But yeah. Now what you're going to do, you're going to select your head mesh. You're going to then go to data transfer, move the data transfer up, type in proxy or whichever your edited head mesh is. You're going to click on that for source, go to face corner data, and add custom normals. And give it some time to process because it is a high poly mesh. And there you go. That's how you do it. And just to show you that it works, right here, there you go. See? Doesn't that look nice? So that's pretty much how you do it. And don't worry, if you have Blendshapes, you can easily still apply the data transfer just easily. It's literally, I think it's literally one of the only modifiers that you can apply to your head mesh if you have Blendshapes. Any other modifier, Blender will not let you apply it with, so yeah. And as I said as well, there is no fix for the Blendshapes having this weird artifact effect. I said there is no fix. I tried looking into it, there is no fix. Because this is basically what edited normals do, because edited normals, it's pretty complicated, but yeah. So pretty much, it looks good, and you know, this is what we need. This is what we need for MToon's sake. So yeah, and now, in case you're wondering as well, how do you get to work on the other stuff? In case you have a very complicated model and you got all this details going on. Well, what you can do, is you can definitely like select your eyelashes. Let's say for example, you select your eyelashes and you separate it. What you can do at least, you can potentially still use your your proxy model, the one from your edited head. Add modifier, data transfer, move this up, proxy, and then give some time because it's a high poly mesh. And then after some time, face corner data, custom normals, give some time to process because it is, like I said, it's very high poly. It's probably gonna kill my computer. And there you go. It'll still work to some degree. So basically, when it comes to the proxy head, you can still use that proxy head that we made. You can use it for like your eyelashes, eyebrows, your mouth. You can still use it for that. Although I would say still be careful, because on things like your expressions, like if you have something like where your expressions are like flat modeled like this, I do not recommend doing edited normals for expressions that look like this, or anything that looks like a plane mesh. This is what we call plane mesh right here, the shadows here. So anything that looks super plane like even my eyes are actual plain little circles, that I do not recommend doing edited normals with, because they kind of already have the normals in there, because they're flat. So anything like that, I don't recommend. Any expression like this, I don't recommend editing the edited normals. But things like, like depending on your eye type and if you have eyeshadow modeled and all that other details, sure, even your mouth, you can. But if your details are like super flat modeled, you don't have to. I mean, you can if you want, but just be careful. You can, like I said, you can still do the transfer basically, but yeah, it really depends what you want, honestly. I can't really specify exactly what would be best for you, because it really depends on your model, whether it's void, custom model, if you made the model or you commission your model from someone else. It really depends on the model, honestly, but it also depends on your style too, so yeah. But I'll go ahead and I'll quickly select this entire thing and just transfer the normals just for the sake of it. I definitely will also say though, I will give a warning too. If you have something where like a mesh, so right here, this tiny little vertice here, this little tiny vertice is actually a blend shape for my sweat mark, which should be right here somewhere. This one. So it's supposed to do this. If by any chance you have an expression where the mesh is like super tiny, like this, I don't recommend doing normal editing at all, because the normals will break and it'll look really ridiculous. So if you have anything like this, do not do normal edits for. Don't do it. Like, I would not recommend it. It'll stretch weirdly. It's gonna look weird with the shadows. Don't do it. But anything else like the eyes, the eyebrows, the inner mouth, any other face details you have, sure, do those normals. But yeah, those are kind of like some extra information I can really give you, I guess. So yeah. But let me go to the data transfer here real fast, and I'll go ahead and transfer the normals real fast. Hold on. Proxy, face corner data, custom normals. Give it some time to process. It's gonna look weird. As I said, the front part will look nice, but as I said as well, it's gonna look weird on the expressions, as you can see. So that's why it's best to do them individually, but I'm just, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm not gonna worry about every single detail because I already taught you. Just apply your knowledge. So yeah. All I can say is, practice. If by any chance, I will show you, just a reminder, in case you do apply like your data transfer and stuff, like, everything looks good, but like certain stuff doesn't look nice, you can always still select that individual piece, go to mesh, normals, and reset vector, and it'll look just fine. That's if you want to like have some certain normals, but like certain areas don't look right. So yeah. But there you go. Pretty much, just in a nutshell, just apply your knowledge. experiment with it, because I can't really give you exactly every single detail, but at least for face mesh wise, that is the technique how I do it. Now let's get into the last part, which is the body. So for the body, it's different. There's not much information regarding how to do body normals. However, I did kind of find like this sort of goodish technique, but honestly, if you really want to dive into deeper anime shading, it's a lot more complicated than that. But for the sake of this, and I'm trying to give it more simplicity, I'll show you how this works. So what you'll be needing is you'll need an add-on called Abnormal. Abnormal is a free add-on. It's actually a recommended normal editing tool. I highly recommend you have it because it has really great tools for you to edit your normals. It's really awesome. Check it out. Link in description. But basically, we'll be using Abnormal to basically allow our body mesh to look more smoother in the shadows. So yeah. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to select our body mesh, and only our body mesh. I highly recommend, if you have nails that are modeled on your character, do not normal edit those nails. They are perfectly fine unless you made them weird. I highly recommend do not do normal editing for the nails. The shadows will look ridiculous. So yeah, just focus on the body. And what we'll need to do is we'll need to go into Abnormal. So when you install it, you'll have a tool that looks like this. So it's going to be on the sidebar right here, and you're going to click on Start Normal Editor. Click on that, and you give it some time, and we'll have all these tools here. Make sure you also lower down your little time little stamp here, so that way you can see more of the settings. So what you'll need to do, and our main focus is on these settings right here. So it's under Manipulate Normals. There's something called Smooth Selected Normals, and we have basically our smooth settings, which I'll stretch out their names. We got Smooth Strength, Edit Smooth Iterations. For body, I usually would have the smooth iteration be kind of like a lowish number. Sometimes I put it to a very high number depending on the mesh type and how big it is, but usually I keep it on the low, because the thing is, you don't want to overly smooth your mesh, because if you overly smooth your mesh, it's gonna look really scary. So I'll go ahead, I'll start off with saying the smooth iterations to 4 and smooth strengths to 1. Make sure that the normals you desire are selected, the vertices, and then we're going to do smooth selected normals, and we're going to give it some time, especially because it's the body. It might take some time, but as you can see, it's slowly getting there. You can add some more if you like, and you can start seeing some slight changes. It's starting to get a little bit darker, so you basically keep adding depending on how much smoothness you want. If you add too much, which I'll try not to crash my computer, usually you'll start seeing that your arm might start acting up, but I can't really show it because, like I said, I'm trying to avoid crashing Blender. But yeah, that's if you do it too much though, but I don't, for this case, I think it'll be fine. So yeah, so once we have this, you know, our normals edited like that, confirm changes, and as you can see, your body looks more smoother. Like I said, if you over smooth it, it may look weird, but for this case though, it looks fine. But now our last question hits. How do we put our head and our body back together? I'll show you how to do that. So what you'll need to do, you'll need to do Control-3, or view from the viewpoint of the left side or right side, whichever. And what you'll need to do is you'll need to basically find the line of vertices that your body mesh and your head mesh is connected to. Select your head mesh, select your body, shift select the body, do Control-J, and remember that line that we were talking about right there. You're going to select that line, select it with the circle tool, which is the C key, press the M button by distance, and there you go, it'll be merged. If by any chance there are some holes, you'll have to manually merge them, but you can easily do merge by distance and you should be fine. So yeah, and then you're going to go back to solid mode, and what you're going to do, you're going to go to mesh, normals, reset vectors, and then you're going to go to the normal editor of abnormal, give it some time, and then you're going to smooth selected normals again. That way it can be more blended with the head. Just like that. And there you go. Like I said, you could do some work, a little bit of extra work to make sure it's more smoother, but there you go. And just to show you how that all looks like, and I will go quickly ahead and unhide the body. So I'll go here, select, assign. So we'll go ahead and select the light if Blender can stop killing me. And then you can take a look. Boom. That looks much smoother. So we'll go ahead and unhide that and add the hair. And also put some clothes on. Jesus Christ. Proxy head, please do not be unhid. But yeah. Oh, it unhided. Whoops. There you go. But yeah, pretty much that is how you'll do your edit normals, basically. That's how I do it for body mesh, head mesh, and hair. It looks really nice. And if you have other accessories, like let's say I have a bow, my bow right here. If you have other accessories you want to do normal edits with, it's literally the same technique as the body. Until there's more information regarding like more specific in-depth normal editing for other accessories, my technique would be to select the normals on the outfit, mess with the smooth selected normals here, and that's kind of it. And make sure you give it some time, and you will confirm changes basically. So yeah. But other than that though, that's pretty much all I really have to show you guys. That is literally how you do edit normals. You can easily use this in MToon, and hopefully it'll work fine. If you do see some weird offset shadows, you could try editing your normals a little bit more to kind of make sure it suits it, but there's really not much you can do, especially with how MToon works. If MToon were to support or do a better job with the normal editing and the offset stuff like Poyomi shader, I think MToon would be very good. But honestly, as of right now, MToon is not really the best, but it is what we have to use for VRM because it is the only shader support. Not the only shader because there's standard shader and unlit, but in terms of like toon style shading for VRM, MToon is the only one you can have. So yeah, unless you use VSF Avatar and use Poyomi and stuff like that, if that's your cup of tea. But yeah. But other than that, that's kind of how I do edit normals. Hopefully this answers everybody's questions. If you have any more questions, like regarding like, you know, Blender, like how to do this, like how do you edit a mesh or something like that. If you have any other question regarding editing your normals, let me know. I will say though, if by any chance you do prefer to not edit your normals, like, you know, you have a VRM file, you don't want to edit the normals, you want to keep it the way they are, but you still want that anime shading, like for that scenario, if you just want to not do the edit normals, you want that anime shading, my only recommendation to you is either try to use VSF Avatar setup, try to find a shader that does a really good job with giving you anime shadows effect. I think RealToon does that. You could try playing with Poyomi, it might do a good job as well, I don't know. You really have to play with shaders if you really, really do not want to do edit normals, but you still want the anime shading. Or you might as well have to go for a custom solution Unity project or Unreal project if you really, really want to do VTubing without edited normals and all that. But it's still more complicated though, but yeah, it really depends. But other than that though, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys have a lovely day, and I hope you don't mind my bad microphone. I just want to teach you guys all this, so yeah. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys next time. Heika, 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 sayonara everyone. Hope you guys have a lovely day, and see you guys next time. Bye!